What I've got for you today is a very special match of StarCraft 2. It was played during DreamHack Dallas, and many StarCraft fans are calling this the very best game of the year, the very best game of the decade, the very best game of StarCraft 2 that has ever been played. Now, I've got a bit of a story, but let me introduce the players first, because in the top left-hand corner, playing with the blue Zerg pieces, we have none other than Serral, and his opponent down in the bottom right with the red, well, I was going to call them SCVs, the red Protoss pieces, we have none other than Classic. Okay, so I actually watched the beginning of this game vaguely while I don't know exactly what I was doing. I think I was doing some Warhammer painting. I was just kind of following along, and then I realized, oh, it's already getting pretty late. Let me go ahead and cook up dinner. I made lasagna. I chopped all the vegetables. I did all of the work. I spent, I think, about an hour or so making this dish. I popped it into the oven, went back upstairs, checked my computer screen, and the game was still ongoing. I hope you got yourselves a drink, because this is going to be one of the longest games of StarCraft 2 that has ever been played. Generally speaking, I would say the average game of StarCraft, it lasts like maybe 10-15 minutes. Usually by like minute 30, the map starts mining out. This particular game is significantly longer than that. The lasagna was delicious, by the way. I purposefully stopped watching when I realized that the game was still ongoing. And after this match was played, I had dozens of people mention that this is a phenomenal game. A lot of people on Discord were saying, on Discord they were saying that this is one of the games I have to go ahead and check out ASAP. So here we are. This is actually part of a best of 5 series. Now, this is not the only long game that these two played. Apparently the entirety of the series, was like 2.5, 3 hours long. Which is just ludicrous. I figured we'll have a look at this game for now, and maybe I'll check out some of the other matches from this series too, because it would just be a little bit too much. Not just as like, you know, a single video on the YouTubes, right? Like a single video on the YouTubes, like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour long video. I know it's just not gonna do well, but also I think me casting for that many, well, hours straight is just going to be terrible for my voice. So we'll just do, I guess, one at a time, and we'll see what all the hype is all about. So far, though, I'm not really seeing anything all too crazy. Serral opening up with a good old, what looks like a triple hatch. Yep, drone moves on over towards that right side here on Incorporeal, which is one of the new maps that recently got added. And then in the meantime, on the other side of the map, Classic is starting off with a little bit of adept shenanigans, and he is now transitioning towards a Stargate. Now, Classic, of course, a very normal Protoss player. Most of the time, he doesn't really do anything too fancy, and likewise also for Serral. He doesn't really play all too many crazy strategies, even though both players are perfectly capable of it. They are what we call the quintessential macro players. Classic very much so likes the game to go a little bit longer. Serral, likewise also, not afraid to play the late game. And that is a little bit of a... it's a little uncommon, I would say, in 2025. In general, Protoss is significantly better now in the late game than they have been in many, many patches. So ever since, I think the biggest change is probably that the mothership is no longer abductable. Zerg players have been struggling a ton more. And because of it, a lot of Zerg players at the highest level are now trying to end the game before it ever really goes the distance. Now, I'm not exactly sure what we should expect here from Serral. I wouldn't be surprised if he is also going to be employing a pretty aggressive late game, just to try and prevent the game from going there, but I guess, spoiler alert, yeah, it does go pretty long. Although we already figured that out, right? Alright, let's see. So, it's gonna be a quick third Nexus here as well. Not the fastest possible Nexus, but by no means slow. We've seen, during DreamHack Dallas, actually, we did see a couple of Nexi go up at like 3.5 minutes, which is very, very early. If you lose one of your Adepts, or one of your Oracles, even worse, you will probably just straight up end up losing the base. Classic, though, is playing this pretty conservatively, although still in a way that he can at least put on some pressure. Now, this is, of course, one of the things that is difficult, right? When you play against Serral, Serral is known to be phenomenally strong defensively. He's considered to be the greatest StarCraft 2 player of all time, and he doesn't really lose a lot of units early on. So it's a lot of harassment here. We've got those Adepts going around, we have those Oracles flying about. They are trying to see if they can lower their worker count in whatever way possible. And right now the follow-up here is actually also the Glaives research, which is a pretty uncommon attack speed improvement here for those Adepts. generally we don't really see it all too often, especially not against the likes of Serral. Classic, though, is going to show a bunch of adepts, and then he is, well, almost faking it, right? He's not usually going to show 5 adepts and then go into the glaives of research. So a small little mind game here by the Protoss. But yeah, dealing damage to Serral in the earlier stages of the game is just very difficult. Just because he's very strong when it comes to the queen positioning, the Zergling timings, the spore crawlers, the overlords, all the little things. They give him that, that very nice defensive posture. Okay, so Glaives is going to finish up in just a moment. This is going to be 4-gate Glaive, so by no means the most aggressive variant. Serral does catch the tail end of a little move out there, but he doesn't see too much. This could actually blindside him quite badly, because we do have a bunch of Zerglings going in. 3 probes end up falling. I'm a little concerned for this situation over here, although there are queens waiting. Yeah, Serral does see that this is coming. How did I even doubt him? Completes the wall off there. Roach almost blocked it, although the adepts decide to commit, and he just targets the Evo chamber itself. Okay, and this is actually putting in a ton of work right now. Stasis ward, I like. Mostly just because it's forcing the retargeting there, and good movement here on those adepts. Drones are starting to fall very rapidly. That stasis ward is blocking the movement up the ramp. And this is, well, the polar opposite of what I was trying to mention earlier, right? This is, generally speaking, not what happens against Serral. Serral taking a lot of damage here in the earlier stages of this game. It's a lot of workers falling, so that means that his eventual army is going to be significantly smaller too. Only 4 gateways again, right? So this wasn't really that committed here by Classic, who decides to recall. Saves the majority of the units too. I mean, he did lose 14, but 14 for 18 drones is a very good deal. Obviously getting Zerglings and Roaches as well on his way in. Not bad whatsoever. Serral decides to go for a Baneling Nest. Now, Baneling Nest is funky. Baneling Nest in general, we see it only every once in a while in Protoss versus Zerg. In Zerg versus Terran, it is, of course, very normal, but yeah, ever since they nerfed the Baneling HP quite a long time ago at this point, right? And they also made it so that Banelings no longer can one-shot probes with +2 attack. Banelings have sort of fallen out of popularity. Now, we do still see them from time to time, as we have once more 2 adepts going in. Mostly, though, whenever Zerg is in a really comfortable position. So, Banelings are fantastic at forcing the game to, well, be over. They're very good at just forcing the opponent out of the match, but they're expensive. So, Serral going into Banelings here is actually a little bit uncommon. We've already got the Storm research on the other side of the map, though. Blink coming up on the back of this, +2 for the ground upgrades too. Nicely done here by Classic, but he has sort of let his foot off the gas. And you can see it reflected here in the work account, right? So despite all that damage that he just dealt, Serral has once more caught up to 69 workers, which is pretty nice if you ask me. Classic, though, doing Classic things. Classic in general, actually, during this particular tournament. He looked really strong. So, I was one of the commentators for DreamHack Dallas. Now, this is one of the series that I did not get to cast. Actually, in the end, like, thankfully, right? Because it means that I can go ahead and have a look at the games right now without actually knowing exactly what ended up happening. But anyways, this is one of the series I didn't check out. But I did see some of the other Classic games that he played, or some of the other games that Classic played, and he played phenomenally well. I keep thinking back of some of the games that I casted earlier this year when Classic, well, just really didn't look like himself. But he has been stepping up to the point where, yeah, he may actually be, I don't know, man. Like, I would consider him definitely to be like a top 3 Protoss. It's probably like Hero, Max Specs, Classic, something along those lines. Like, he genuinely looked very good. Maybe it was a fluke. We'll have to see exactly how he performs over the next couple months, but Classic certainly did impress me. Either way, Serral cuts 17 corners here, trying to get back into this very defensive posture. This attack here from Classic is meant to almost win the game. He does have enough economy on the back of this too, though. The Storms are good. The Banelings are starting to roll through, and the High Templar, I mean, with the Stalkers blinking back. Yeah, not quite really achieving much. I think if Classic decided to go for literally any attack in between this and then also the Adepts that came out a little earlier, right? If he would have gone for anything else, there's a good chance he would have been able to just destroy the Zerg, because Serral had very little there for the majority of, well, of the last couple of minutes. Serral, though, timing the drones there perfectly, taking a bit of a gamble. Decided to make pretty much exclusively drones there for a while, and then made army once again. And it turns out Ravagerling Bane worked out really well. Now we have a transition away, though, from that Baneling army into a Lurker Den instead. Adrenal Glands coming up. We're going to see the Hydralisk upgrades, too. Maybe not the conventional way for Zerg players to go from a mid-game army into a late-game army. All of this is a little bit messy. But he had to make some choices, right, after falling quite significantly behind here earlier on. Okay, so. Oh my god. Dude, actually the resources lost here are way better for Serral than I thought it was ever going to be. 19 Banelings are pretty expensive, but it's been mostly minerals lost. Yeah, those High Templar are pricey. He lost a lot of the Stalkers too. That was probably the best engagement Serral could have ever taken. Still though, Protoss players feeling confident. We have a Fleet Beacon coming up, an additional Stargate on the production tab too. Classic is starting to make that transition towards the late game. Probes have to run away. Banelings are here. High Templar throwing water balloons. Yeah. It's very difficult for Protosses to engage onto creep. And that's one thing that Banelings are extremely good at, right? When you're fighting on creep as a Zerg, if you look at the creep spread right now on the minimap, Serral has been sending it in every direction. Playing at 500 or so actions a minute here. Let me do a little bit of first-person view. So this is what Serral was looking at whilst playing the match. When you're fighting against Banelings on creep, it is difficult to escape. Still, Classic now gets to transition towards that late game, and pretty much all Protoss players love playing the late game right now. Going into the Mothership, going into the Tempest. It's still difficult though, like don't get me wrong. I think across the board, Protoss is strong in the late game, as we do have another attack. Okay, Storms here are looking pretty good, but Roaches are beefy targets. And this is actually now prompting the majority of the Protoss army to return back home. In the meantime, there's a little counterattack over here too. Serral was ready to kill some Banelings, or kill some probes with the Banelings rather, but not really a whole lot of targets there for him to actually shut down. Still though, this tiny squad of units, Classic, can we send some troops there? Okay, Classic just let it kill the entirety of the base. I did not expect that. He also gave up on the Roaches, so losing those Roaches there on the other side of the map, a bit messy maybe, but Serral doesn't really want to sit on Roaches anymore at this moment in the game. Replacing them with Hydras, Zerglings, Banelings, Lurkers, that sort of thing. The Roaches are just a little bit too supply heavy. So what I was trying to say, most Zerg players are not really keen to play late game. Serral's late game has always been one of the very best, if not the best, in all of StarCraft 2. So even though across the board Zerg players don't really like playing late game that much against Protoss right now, I don't think Serral is really too concerned about it. Beautiful positioning here on those Lurkers. Oof. Those Lurkers are going to be extremely difficult to break. How in the world do you walk down that ramp? Well, apparently you don't. Instead, Classic is going to go in for the counterattack. 14 probes are already dying though, left, right, and center. Looks like there's maybe been a bit of a Baneling roll by over there. Still, the Zerg army can't really chase this very easily, and Serral decides to give up on that position. I'm a bit surprised by that. I think he should have gone after the kill. Either way, he decides to go back home, and I think he will still pay the price for that hatchery. Although Classic, I mean, in Corporeal, it has this weird corner, right? It's difficult to actually move away out of that position. Mothership right now shows up. A bunch of Tempests are also available. Drones are already dying, though. We have some of those spine crawlers behind the mineral line here that are buying a ton of time. Great zoning here by Classic. I really like that he didn't just dive into the corner, because it would be difficult to actually extract his army. Okay. He gets out, kills 18 drones too. I think Serral should have doubled down. He could have killed that base. He could have killed this base, and he would have still lost this base too, but ultimately the result is the same. Difficult game to read though, right? Keep in mind, we can obviously see all the resources and the exact supply counts and all that. Serral may have assumed that he was still at a massive deficit or something along those lines, because the early game was so rough for him. Now Classic is smelling blood. He's got an awful lot of army, and one that is certainly capable of killing that of the Zerg. Positioning, though, down this ramp is not really where you want to have these Protoss units. Still, though, Serral decides to back up, mostly because the Mothership is here. We have an Oracle with Revelations, too, allowing him vision of where those Lurkers are, assuming he uses the Revelation skill. And this might honestly be able to do game-ending damage. Like, this is a super difficult spot to actually defend. I love the cloaking field here. Time Warp goes down in a brilliant spot, too. Corruptors are coming up. Corruptors are here, but, like, we need certainly a lot more of them. Mothership, though, is gonna tank a lot of damage and ultimately fall. There's really no reason here for Classic to go too deep. Yeah, he's sending in another little Zealot run-by towards the top right. He's just trying to maximize damage, but likewise, what he was trying to do in the top right, he should certainly be able to extract his army out of this position too. I do believe he already used recall, yes, so recall is currently on cooldown, meaning that he needs to be cautious. If he overextends, it is not really easy for him to go back home. Dark Shrine coming up. Mothership 2.0, the Step Mothership coming up. I believe that's the scientific tool. I don't know what the name of it is. Good zoning here, though. Yeah, he decides to move away, but keeps all of the Tempests alive for now. We haven't really seen a whole lot of... the Zealots, by the way, got cleaned up, right? By the Leans and the Banes over here. We haven't really seen a lot of carrier play over the last little while. I feel like this is a position where you can start thinking about carriers again. Tempests have become way more popular as of late. Carriers, though, still something you need to take into consideration. These upgrades are super late. Classic actually should have already had a second Cyber Core going here, and I wouldn't mind if he makes one right now, because he's got plenty of money. Getting double upgrades for the flying units, very, very handy. Although, obviously, Tempests don't benefit from those upgrades as much as, for example, a carrier would, just because their attack speed is way slower. And they don't carry little interceptor ships. Oh, careful, careful. Those lurkers are going to be able to... will absolutely destroy the ground units if you're not paying attention. Classic, though, decides to play it safe. Moving towards the bottom left-hand corner is Classic. It's far away from the Zerg. And it's quite a nice position, I think, for him. Ooh, big fungal. Ooh, massive fungal, making it difficult for the Protoss units to move back up the ramp. Serral grabs an extremely good fight as we do have the recall being utilized. Some of the units do go home, but that was expensive. That fungal growth catching Classic off guard. And we're going to see a nosedive there when it comes to the army size. Serral just barely grabbing the... yeah, perfect engagement there. Bit of an overextension by Classic, who was getting a bit too comfortable walking around on the perimeter of the creep. He did take a lot of losses. Up until this point, Serral has lost... more minerals, but less gas. And gas, generally, the longer a game goes on, is the determining factor. Like, you need gas. Both of these armies are extremely gas-heavy. Pretty much all the units we'll see on the production tab from here on out cost, well, more gas than they cost minerals, or at least they cost a ton of gas. So, it's difficult for these type of fights to look at them, right, in isolation and not think, okay, this is a massive advantage right now for Zerg. Maybe... early on, right, after those drones, well, that was certainly an advantage for Classic. He didn't really capitalize on it. Right now, I am favoring Serral's position ever so slightly, at least as far as the fights go. And that is one of the things you don't like normally see. Most of the time, Zergs lose way more gas at this phase in the game than the Protoss players do. So Classic not taking the engagements that he could be taking. Or maybe Serral was squeezing more juice out of his army than Zerg players are normally capable of. Either way, Neural Parasite coming up. Burrow is researching. We've got +2. Nidus Worms are going around the map too, although we do already have the Tempest on top of it. And you can hide, but you can't go invisible. Okay. Minerals have been dumped on some static defense over here. So all of the static defense... for both the Zerg as well as the Protoss, all of it only costs minerals. So gas expenditure is what most players here are aiming for. Minerals still important though, and getting a base like this is nice. 23 probes trying to gather the Vespine. Nidus Worm over here did get the Knight. I actually quite like that. One Dark Templar being used as a Nidus Worm cleaner. Hello. Can we move the probes away, please, Classic? Oof. Some sloppy mistakes. Honestly, I feel like across the board, a lot of those fights should have gone a bit better. My favorite moment of Classic so far was, well, him catching his opponent off guard quite a while ago. Nice zoning, though. And I really did like how he took the engagement here the first time around in the top right-hand corner. Still, fungal. Another fungal over here. Some good feedbacks. Woo! A couple of the overseers also took some damage there. Nice abduction by Serral. Grabs one of the units using the Viper. Zergling run by in the meantime on the right side of the map. Zealot run by in the meantime also on the right side of the map. +3 melee just about to finish up. +2 here also just about to finish up. We're still only on a single air upgrade. Across the board, Serral is playing a much cleaner game here. We only have a single air upgrade right now. Even though Classic has had all the time in the world to begin those upgrades anew, right? He could have certainly started them earlier, and he could have certainly had a second Cybercore, and he could certainly be researching +2 right now. +2 for the air attacks is massive, especially if you ever plan on going into carriers. Either way, Serral has already made his next step in the master plan, and that is to go apparently into Brute Lords 2. For now, they will be in combination with Lurkers, but I think as time goes on, we'll probably see the Lurkers in smaller numbers. Maybe still used in like a Nidus Worm and for attacks like this. But both of them are siege units, right? They have sort of overlapping roles. The Lurker and the Brute Lord, that is. So I can imagine that the age of the Lurker is soon ending. We may very well see some more for the time being, though, and they're still extremely good here. A lot of Archons. Good fungal growth there once more. This is the first time that Classic sees that he is indeed playing against a Brute Lord Infestor heavy army. Good fight over here, though, in the end, but all of the Zealots are dying. Ugh. That's a lot of minerals down the drain. Classic, though, still has a ton of mining, right? Like, he's still got 49 workers working away. And even though he sort of struggled securing this base over here, I think economically speaking, he's fine. But I think he probably also hoped that he was in a slightly better position than he is right now. Okay, +2 finally begins. Honestly, maybe this is one of those situations where Classic got too comfortable. He kind of thought that this game was in the bag after the early game, and then he didn't really... kind of felt like he was playing at like 80%. Serral, though, not somebody who ever falls without a fight, and honestly, he's looking strong. The one thing he doesn't really have a whole lot of, if I'm being very critical, is creep spread. I feel like this entire section of the map should be gooped up. It's one of the reasons why securing this base has proven so difficult. Lurkers once more in a position where they aren't quite seen. Revelation, though, does get used. Serral is already out. Carrier production has now begun. +3 air, though, already researching here for Serral. So keep in mind, this Spire play was much later than the Fleet Beacon play for Classic. And Serral is still pretty much an entire upgrade ahead. He also researched +1 armor, so he's basically 2 entire upgrades ahead. Big difference there. There's still no reason why Classic shouldn't have a second Cybercore researching. Either way, +2 shields also coming up, which I do quite like. The other ground upgrades are not as important anymore. Armor for the ground units is nice, but when you're mostly Archons, it doesn't really matter that much. And he's still maneuvering around the map, trying to make sure that the creep doesn't get out of control. Love the little stasis ward here too, as he's once more, I think this is attempt 4, on this particular nexus over here. Now, there is still one base for both players in the middle of the map. These are difficult. I don't see how you're ever going to be able to acquire them. But this game is going on for a while longer, right? So, how in the world are you ever going to take those bases? Now, these are mineral-only bases, by the way. So I believe they have 10 mineral fields and 0 gas. So minerals are nice. Again, like spore crawlers, photon cannons, shield batteries, all the rest of it is cool. But not as critical as anything else. So I can imagine we're only going to see those bases being taken as like a last-ditch effort. Because minerals is not usually what players are really looking for at this point in time. But still, you do need some. And it's not like the banks are really that significant yet either. So it looks like we've actually reached a little bit of a lull as both players decide to just macro up. Nidus Whack-A-Mole will, however, continue inside of the main base. As the Tempests are now flying on over in this direction too. Working away at it. Lovely back and forth so far, though. So this is the entirety of the last 10 minutes, right? So we've had an interesting dip and dive for both players. I would actually love to see the army size graph for the entirety of the game. That'd be kind of sick. Sadly, not an option as far as I'm aware. The trades have been near even, which usually means that Zerg is benefiting. Okay, looks like some of the units here are dying. Mostly just Brutelings as far as I can tell. A couple of Changelings also slipping through the cracks. More static defense here coming up for Classic. We're now arrived, though, at a point where neither player is really going to add on more drones or more probes. Or more SCVs, for that matter. I don't think we're going to see more workers. Maybe a few more from the Zerg to, like, make static defense with. But lost workers will probably be replaced with army. Can we abduct? Yoink! Yoink! Yeah, gets 2 of them. Lovely work right there by Serral. How did that... Hold up. How did that first carrier just die? Did Serral kill it? Oh, yeah. So he abducted one and then killed the one in the back. That was very smoothly done. I actually wondered for a secondary if it was... Ooh, the Protoss targeting their own unit. Either way, we have a run-by over here with the Immortals. And the Immortals get the job done by themselves. He still has some Immortals in the mix. Mostly just to prevent for example, a possible, like, Ultralisk transition, or if it's a whole lot of lurkers that he's encountering. They're still powerful against that sort of thing, too. If you're caught off guard against Ultras and you have absolutely no Immortals, you're also in trouble. Neural Parasite is always tempting here. Serral finds a bunch of those units. Okay, he's playing it conservatively, though. Oh, we do have a couple of Neurals going down, and quite a few of the High Templar are dying, too. Serral storms his opponent's units. After taking control of one of the Templar, he decides to back up, though. Plenty of Tempest still alive. As we have a first attempt from both players to take those minerals in the middle of the map. I don't really remember any map that featured a 10 mineral field middle of the map type of situation. Most of the time, the late game expansions, no cancel by the way, so that's 400 minerals down the drain, but most of the late game expansions in StarCraft 2 are gas heavy. It's quite common to see an expansion here with, like, rich gases. This is a mineral only base. Still nice to have, but not as much value, I don't think. And Serral's still using the lurkers here to constantly deal damage to the static defense. Attempting to put him in the Night as Worm too. He decides to back up once again. Live to fight another day. Man, these upgrades feel so freaking late, Classic. Ay, ay, ay. We're 27 minutes in as he takes another fungal. Another Archon dice. Yeah, Serral is just making his opponent bleed out units. Look at the trades here. 2,000 gas, more effective here than the Protoss up until right now. Normally, it is the... Well, it's a Zerg player who'd be at like 15,000 gas lost at this point in time. Serral taking phenomenal trades. A little bit of a Dark Templar run by. Fight over here in the bottom left-hand corner too. Brute Lord trying to see if they can help out those lurkers from earlier to try and shut down this expansion. In the meantime, though, the entirety of the Protoss army is running on over in this direction. And is this an overextension here from the finisher? No, not quite, it looks like. The rest of the Zerg army was close by. Okay. A couple of Zerglings here running into, but they're not going to achieve much. I actually quite like it, though, that Serral still has a control group with about 20 Zerglings. So apparently he's dedicating about 10 supply here to run-by squads, right? He must have a control group just with a bunch of those units. Not exactly sure how he's hotkeying all of this, because there's a lot of different moving parts in this Zerg army. I'm imagining here for Classic, he's got most of his units on one control group, and then probably a secondary one for the High Templar. Maybe a third one as well for the Oracles, and then the Tempest. Technically, the sky is the limit with this type of army, too. Because you can also certainly have a separate control group for the Mothership. Either way, what I'm getting at is that both of these players are playing very complex units. A recall here to watch that Nexus in the middle. Apparently, Classic really wants to be mining his minerals over here. Okay. Armor upgrades have begun, may as well. None of these units really need it, but you may as well. Little Zergling run by in the bottom left-hand corner. They're gonna sit on the ground for a little bit, regen some health. Stasis Ward over here is gonna put those units to sleep for just a moment. Okay. Corruptor's trying to get a good fight in. Keep in mind that Corruptors do not have that rapid regeneration, right? So Mutas, they regen extremely quickly out of combat. Corruptors don't. So Corruptors, you can see the HP ticking up here. It takes a very long time for the units to get back up to full. It means that if you do take a bad storm to the face, you're now taken out of the rotation for like 3 minutes. Plus 3 air coming up here as well for Serral. Plus 3 air armor, that is. Oh, nice abduction there again. Man, Serral is so lethal. How does he control all of this so smoothly? Has anybody checked to see if Serral has like an extra set of arms? Because all of this still feels like he is controlling it with separate control groups. But like, you have to be dancing on the keyboard. It feels like you have like a, I don't know, like six control groups for army at this point in time. Not easy to really control all of that in a reasonable way, right? It's one thing to make the control groups and then a second one to actually use them. Still trying his best though, Fungal. Feedbacks instead. Great feedbacks there by Classic. As he got, I think, 3 infestors there. Not bad whatsoever. In the meantime, though, that Zergling group, once more, being a nuisance. Lurkers going around the site. So feedback from a High Templar deals damage based on the amount of energy that the feedback unit has. So, full energy infestors die. They have 90 HP and 200 max health. Can we see another one? Ooh. That guy saved himself by fungaling first. Okay. Base in the middle is in low HP. Serral is mining it though right here. Look at that, 27 drones. Pretty effectively too. You can probably support up to like 30 workers here. 3 per mineral field and still gain more. Either way, yeah, the resources lost, pretty much even, but they are not really meant to be even at this point in time. They are meant to be quite a bit better for Protoss. Now, if we're going to bleed out lurkers like that, sure, then suddenly life is going to be pretty great. That can turn the tides of battle pretty quickly, but I'm liking this position for Serral quite a bit, even though there's still pretty much an infinite amount of resources coming in for both players. Okay. And we are now arriving, 32 minutes into the game, at a point where effectively every mineral field is either mined out or being mined, right? Now, there's still a bit of money remaining over here. Maybe we should spend some of the 10,000 minerals here on a lot of spore crawlers. That would not be a bad idea. Maybe that'll be what Serral wants to do next and why he's mining this expansion. Because this, honestly, like, we need more minerals than 10,000 in the bank. There's an argument to be made that it's not really worth really dedicating all this supply to anymore. Classic, though, has not really been able to build up a bank quite as large. Mostly the gas count has me a little bit concerned. Yeah, all of his gases are starting to run out. Honestly, we're already at a point where the gases are nearly fully mined out. So Classic has about 1,000 remaining over there. Yeah, only 10 over here. So that is going to be another empty assimilator. We're getting to the point where there is not going to be any additional gas for any player. Serral's still mining a bit of it. Maybe a bit more. Oh, big fight. Or at least Classic is thinking about it. He decides to back up, though, after seeing the amount of static defense there. Top right, though, is already out. And all of the other expansions for the Zerg have already dried up. So we've climbed the tech ladder, right? We've gone all the way from the lowly Zealot all the way up to the Mothership. And likewise, for the Zerg, we've gone from, well, for example, the Zergling to the Brute Lord. When you run out of gas, you're going to have to climb back down again. It's one of my favorite moments, actually, in a game of StarCraft, when players have mined out literally the entire map, and they only have, well, minerals remaining, so we go back to the type of game we started. Zerglings are way better than Zealots in the late game. So I hope for Classic's sake that it's not gonna be that. These bad boys don't mess around. Nice snipe here, but obviously this Nexus is no longer worth rebuilding. It takes 400 minerals to build a Nexus. There's 400 minerals remaining on those mineral fields. Serral bleeds out a bunch more lurkers. That is not the first time we've seen that. I think we've seen probably, I don't know, like 6, 7, 8 of those lurkers going down for free. Lurkers are, I think, 150 gas each, right? So that is quite a significant portion of gas down the drain. Serral's replacing them with, well, more corruptors for now, a bunch more hydras, but that is something you do have to take into consideration. Any unit that you see bleeding out, I mean, we've seen a couple of zealots dying. Big groups of zealots that just sort of get wiped off the map. And don't get me wrong, that's not ideal. But losing a lot of lurkers like that is extremely painful for the Zerg when gas is your main finite resource. Let's see. Looks like this base will finally be mined out. Attempt number 4, by the way, on this particular Nexus. Maybe even attempt number 5. Classic lost this base so many times. But yeah, now we've arrived at the point where neither player is really mining that much anymore. Like, Serral still has an income advantage. And maybe when these bases in the middle go back up, we will see both players trying their very best, but... Oop, nice snipe there on a Brute Lord. Yeah, if we look now at the resources lost, okay, it's still in favor there of the Zerg. But not as much as it used to be. Can we get, okay, one of the Tempests to fire. So what Classic is very cleverly doing here is using the Revelation ability on the Oracle to reveal the units of the Zerg for 15 seconds. I think it's 15. At which point the Tempest, that can shoot away further than they can see, can actually use their maximum range. Now, Serral has a massive concave over here of flying units. We have the Infestors coming in. Beautiful feedbacks. Ay, ay, ay. That was a lot of these units going down. I do believe that the High Templar responsible for that job will also fall. So maybe in the end it's an eye for an eye. But excellent movement here by Classic. And that is something we haven't really seen optimized over the years of StarCraft. I feel like we rarely see Protoss players of this level actually using feedback to its maximum potential. It's always a focus on Storm, and Storm is amazing. But feedback is not to be underestimated, especially against relatively low HP targets, like, for example, the Infestors. Now, the Zerg run by over here, though, apparently enough of a distraction for the Nexus over here to die. Okay, more revelations, just to see if there's any Zerg units hiding around the corner. Serral killed the Nexus in the middle. Classic killed the hatchery in the middle, too. Okay. +3 armor. Man, this feels so late. 38 minutes almost into, or 37 rather, into the game. +3 armor is researching. Mate, we needed that 15 minutes ago. I can't believe that these carriers and all the other flying units aren't maxed out yet. That's crazy talk. Alright, well, he's gonna get there eventually. Honestly, that may actually be one of the reasons why some of those fights have not quite gone his way. We haven't seen that many flying units die. So it's really hard to pinpoint, you know, a reason to just upgrades, but that certainly is going to make the big fights much harder. Admittedly, though, if you look right here at the flying units that have died, it's been 10 Corruptors, 2 Carriers, 8 Tempests, 3 Brutes. I mean, I feel like all of those units would have died regardless of the upgrades anyway. When the big clash happens, and it will happen at some point, it has to. Unless we want to end with a draw or something, but those upgrades are going to be absolutely critical. Every single one of the Protoss units, right, in the air, so including the Interceptors, benefit from those upgrades. Now, Interceptors aren't directly targetable. Spell damage from, for example, Parasitic Bomb will just completely ignore armor upgrades anyway, but it's still nice to have some additional shielding for whatever you have over here. Brute Lords, trying to do a little bit of a flyby. I find it ambitious. This expansion is not useful anymore. Still some mining here going on, but really not that critical. And it might just pull the Zerg way out of position, but the creep spread over here is good. And you can see the Classic is... He's got this huge army, man. 186 army supply here. He's only got 10 probes. This is... this is one hell of an army for a Protoss player. Both players, though, have a lot. Serral's still at 30 workers, so that's something, but 190 supply is basically all right over here. It is not something you can ever underestimate. The one thing we don't have here for Serral is a ton of static defense. I was gonna say, I feel like that is one of the things that this base is good for. Spore crawler production, spine crawler production. Apparently Serral is actually trying to maintain a bank of 10,000. Isn't that kind of funny? Like, he only started making these spores when he had a surplus of bigger than 10,000. Serral likes to make sure he always has $1 million on his bank account too. You don't want to be dipping. You don't want to dip below. He probably has like a warning set up, you know, on his bank account. If he dips below $1 million, we got to transfer some from the savings account. Now, we have you get like a notification on your phone. Anyways, Classic did walk around the site here and got a kill. Spore crawlers or not, they're going to fall. Okay. There's actually still a little bit of juice remaining on this base. Certainly worth mining. Classic is trying to see if he can kill those lings. The lings managed to slide away. And look at these upgrades, man. Zorklings fully upgraded with adrenal glands. They just kill a base so rapidly. Okay. Classic hits your classic 40-minute supply block. That Nexus fell. It was also granting supply, so yeah, we gotta get the job done. Serral is now long-distance mining those 400 minerals that Classic said, nah, I don't need a Nexus over here for. Serral is now long-distance mining them. It's gonna take those drones probably the better part of 20 minutes, but they will get the job done eventually. It's 5 minerals a trip. 70 trips. We need 70 trips on how many drones? Like 6? Well, you can do the math. This little cul-de-sac over here on the right side of the map too. Apparently this is the perfect location for a bunch of pylons. Interestingly enough, this whole area over here is just a complete dead end. Yeah, Serral has been playing this really, really nice. Across the board, do like Serral's position here significantly better. Mostly just because Classic has been pretty frivolous with his spending. He's just been losing a lot of resources, and he just doesn't have an easy way to replace. An Archon goes down. The only thing that I haven't really liked from Serral is him bleeding out those lurkers. Woo! The cloaking field saves the Nexus. 39 HP remains. It kind of feels to me like Classic is a little uncertain as to what he needs to do right now. Like, he's got this army and he's kind of like awkwardly walking it around the map a little bit, but he's like, yo, can I hit you here? Can I destroy your base there? Classic is on his first date over here. He normally never gets to this point. What do you do now that you're here? We've got all the stuff. We have everything, but like, what do we do with it? Do we just, okay, we'll just park our army back in the middle of the map again. Oh, thank God. That makes me feel comfortable. Couple of Zerglings here trying to be a nuisance. But Serral is still treating the entirety of the map right now like his main base. He has been struggling, though, securing this expansion in the middle. Serral's been fighting, and he's been maintaining a resource lead. A very significant one, too. Classic just losing more stuff. Not really able to mine as much stuff. Now, the fact that this expansion over here is on a high ground is pretty phenomenal, right? Like, that makes the defense way easier. Only 8 probes, by the way, on that base. 10 mineral fields, 8 probes. Somehow this worker decided to pick the furthest away one. You hate to see it. Little Zergling run by over here. Classic decides to wall himself in fully. Serral's like, let me in! Let me in! Well, maybe later, dude. I'm sure the Zerglings will bite their way through it eventually, although if it's up to Classic, he's going for a photon cannon and a shield battery over here. Not an easy job. Finds another base. Yep, and those flying units are not to be underestimated, although Serral now also finishes the job in a mirrored position on the other side. Man, my coffee's gone cold. I completely forgot about our coffee. Okay, so both players, right, have been building up their ultimate armies. It is very uncommon, though. Even though we see, like, 50,000 resources lost for both players, It's very uncommon to not really have had a main fight yet between these two players. Like, we've had a lot of units getting picked off over the course of time, but I feel like we haven't really had one giant clash between the forces, which is quite interesting. They've mostly just been going around each other, bleeding out a couple units, tagging a bunch of troops on the way out, sniping a few overextensions, that sort of thing, but not really that many main engagements over like the last 20 minutes. And it'll have to happen at some point. Neither player can really afford being caught unprepared. You can tell here that Classic is not keen to move into creep. So creep just provides a significant advantage for Zerg, mostly at this point for vision. So sniping the creep tumors here and backing up, I think that is the way to go. Obviously Zerg units also do gain a speed advantage, but most of these troops don't really benefit from it very much. It's the vision, I think, here that Classic is mostly just trying to deny. So he's happy to fight the Zerg, but he wants to do it on his own terrain and preferably up a ramp. Likewise here for Serral, he doesn't really want to fight without the creep, and he doesn't really want to fight up the ramp. So they're existing alongside each other. Serral's still taking those mineral fields, by the way. I absolutely love it. He's like, yo, you're not taking them? Are you gonna finish that? are you gonna, like, you know, those potatoes? Are you gonna finish? Like, if you're not gonna finish your dessert, can I, like... Serral's just taking whatever he can get right now. It's a meager living, but it's one that still counts. Brilliant stuff. Zergling's got a Dark Templar kill there as the Overseer popped in just to provide a bit of vision, a little bit of detection. They're running all the way around the map. Probes, ooh, for some reason not mining. Classic actually doesn't have much stuff. Like, if we look at the cost of the armies, so you can see that in the top left, Serral's army is about the same cost here as Classic's. Neither player is even remotely close to being able to, like, replenish their units again. It's not like they can just replace this army, right? Like, if they lose the entirety of it. But Classic has way less. Like, 1,000 gas, not even, is all he needs to work with. These, okay, are now recalling singular zealots, apparently. Fair enough. Yeah, and we are arriving as well at the point where both players have nearly 200 supply worth of army units. Serral's sitting at 190 supply right now, Classic at 192. Just army units. He makes one probe, by the way. He makes 2 probes. He can make 2 to fill out his unit composition. Zealot over here in the meantime, working away at whatever it can. It's not much, but it's honest work. Drone decides to burrow just so he can consider mining that for a little bit longer. Okay. There's a lot of queens, by the way. Yeah. So this I do quite like. I was talking earlier about how Zerglings are definitely the best mineral unit, right? Like, in the late game, at least if you compare it to, like, Zealots and Marines and stuff. Like, I think Zerglings are phenomenal. Queens, though, are, of course, spellcasters. And Queens are 175 minerals each. They're not usually made as an army unit, but they can still be used for transfusion and, well, creep spread, for example, over here, too. They also do deal quite a bit of damage when fully upgraded, although Serral actually doesn't have the full Evo Chamber upgrades. It's not really why he's got them here. They're mostly just here for their spells. It's important, though, that you don't have the Queens body blocking the Infestors here, which is something that I have had many times myself in my own games. It's painful. Don't ask me how. Trying to throw a couple of probes here, or a couple of Brootlings onto the probes. This game is becoming extremely tense. Like, the clash has to happen. Serral, by the way, has entirely given up on mining this base, it seems. Apparently, we do find 6,000 minerals okay. He's slowly pushing his creep up this high ground, and the Spore Crawler's behind it too. Here we go. Serral decides to move in. Neural Parasite gets thrown down. We had a bunch of fungals already. Cloaking Field gets activated as Serral swoops forward right here with all of the Corruptors too. Queen's desperately trying to transfuse whatever they can hit. Great storms going down, though, too, here for Classic, who is dealing a tremendous amount of units. And the Archons here, in the meantime, on the ground are dealing a ton of damage, too, to the clumped-up Zerg army units. Queens don't have a ton of energy remaining anymore. Corruptors still flying through the storms. Archons dealing so much damage, but still, that was, I think, about the best fight that Serral could ever take. Now both players will have to remax immediately with whatever resources they can. Serral decides to go for 18 additional Corruptors, 20 additional Corruptors, and 1 Viper. That's it. No more gas. Likewise, Classic here is warping in 1 Stalker with his final resources. He decides to blink after this. Good fungal growth, though, by Serral. Spore Crawler's currently uprooted. We probably want to put those down again, as he does. Another aggressive blink forward. We have fungal growth being thrown on top of all of those Stalkers. It's the Zerglings swoop in. Corruptors trying to go after the Interceptors. We have a fungal growth on those as well. A couple of Brute Lords in the back just throwing their children forward whenever they can. Slowly working through all of those Stalkers. Archons, though, are falling. Yeah, and with only 2 Archons remaining, it means that the Corruptors pretty much have free reign. One of the Brute Lords gets targeted down. Stalkers blink after it again. Protoss units in the air can't really follow here with the amount of Spore Crawlers. Serral tries to use that to his advantage as he snipes another one of those carriers. Zerglings are here available. Both players now entirely broke. We have 191 minerals available for Classic, who's going to probably spend the majority of it. Actually, no. Rebuilding Interceptors is what I was going to say, but he doesn't have any carrier remaining anymore. What Serral does have, though, is a whole lot of... Oh, no, he's got 21 Corruptors. Serral has 21 Corruptors and 1 Brute Lord. He does not have any way to really use those Corruptors at this point in time because there are no flying units that remain. There are no flying units anymore. Oh, no. Has Serral just... Did he just... Ooh, he may have just thrown it. I thought that that was about the best fight he could take. Oh, Serral's nervous too. Did you see that? Caustic Spray goes on cooldown as soon as you use it. All of those Corruptors have just used it. There's 1 High Templar. Okay, High Templar uses Storm, goes down. What exactly is there available right now for the Protoss player? It's just this single Archon providing the anti-air. If he can snipe down the Brute Lord, I think that's it. Oh my god, the Archon is chasing it down. There are still Queens available, or at least there were at the beginning of that fight. The transfusion is starting to wear off. We have a recall. We have a recall to save this 1 hero Archon. 29 confirmed kills. If it can kill that 1 Brute Lord, I think that will shut everything down. Zealots and Immortals, though, mostly just trying to see if they can tank the damage. So the Brute Lord does not kill their little brother. Okay. So, Caustic Spray, it is like, I think it's like a 45-second cooldown. And it does allow these Corruptors to puke all over bases. It does take down expansions, right? It does take down bases pretty rapidly. It's just that the cooldown is long. So the ability itself is powerful. It can only be used... Oh, we have a Viper. The Viper goes down. Nice snipe right there, actually. Super important unit here for Serral. I mean... in a one-on-one fight, obviously the Brute Lord is good. But the Archon can just run around. As long as he's got a recall available, he should be able to get it out of here. And yeah, now this Protoss army, killing all of the Brutelings ASAP. This Protoss army is hunting down a single Brute Lord. What are the Corruptors doing? They're just throwing their puke all over whatever base they can hit. Immortals, well, forced to use their barrier ability to stay alive. Oh my god. I guess we have a separate control grid now for the Archon. Serral, though, using his army here to target fire down that single Archon. There is no Zealot anymore. There's no more mining anymore. There's or no Queens anymore, rather. These points of damage that Serral's taking on the Brute, they're gonna have to regen over time. It takes a very long time for that Brute to reach back up to full HP. Corruptors are still good, though. So, the win condition in a game of StarCraft 2 is to destroy all of your opponent's structures. Army units are not relevant. Meaning that as long as the structures are down, he will obtain the victory. That's also what those Zealots and Immortals have just started. The structures tab is still very long at this point in time, but it's really, like, in absolute numbers, it's not even that many. If you use, like, 1 Corruptor, Caustic Spray, everything, I mean, you can get rid of most of this base in, like, maybe 3 minutes? Zealots going around still, hitting whatever they can. Where's the one Archon? Oh, we have some long distance mining going on. I quite like it, actually. It has to be brought back to the original Nexus. But hey, it's better than nothing. Serral now also using caustic spray on whatever he can. His rapid fire is so high that I think he's using the corruptors individually because he can't actually do it any other way. Archon. 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 Archon gets underneath. Ooh. One hit is already good. Like, one hit of an Archon fully upgraded like this actually hits pretty dang hard. Keep in mind that Archons are pretty much all shields. And the shields will regen very quickly. Okay, he's trying once more. Ooh, gets another hit on that Brute Lord. Zealots trying to see if they can snipe all of those Brute Lings. So Brute Lords deal damage in two folds. They deal damage first off when the Brutelings get thrown onto the target. And then also with the little Brutelings that remain on the ground. Classic is just trying to kill whatever. Caustic Spray is used inside of the main base. And the Nexus at this point is gone. Zealots and Immortals are still hitting whatever they can. Archon is backing up for a second. I think it needs to back up a little bit more, dude. Oh my god, this is so dangerous. If the Archon dies, that will be the final form of anti-air gone. Oh! Can he get the Brute Lord? Can he get the Brute Lord? Can he get the Brute Lord? Oh my god, he gets the freaking Brute Lord. There's no way. I can't believe Classic sent it back so quick. I feel like you back up, wait until you're full shields again, but he saw an opportunity. That Brute Lord was sleeping on the job as Serral was busy caustic spraying whatever he can inside of the main base. And that means that only 2 Zerglings right now remain as Serral's only anti-ground. Okay, so now it comes down to whoever can kill the final structures quicker. Serral's been revealed. It's just this single Spore Crawler. What a way to end it. Just like that. It is Classic who obtains the victory in a phenomenal game of StarCraft 2. I know I overused the term Game of the Year, but my god, was that one of the games of the year, maybe one of the games of the decade even. Phenomenal. There's a lot of different ways in which that game could have gone Serral's way. I actually think Serral had that in the bag until he overestimated the amount of resources that Classic had. So I think what happened there for Serral is that he looked at his own resource bank and he probably thought, okay, my opponent has been mining the same amount of resources as me throughout the game. Therefore, he also should probably have a similar amount of resources, right? Like, at that point, he should also have about as much minerals and gas as I have. So what does Protoss do? They remax on additional Skytoss units. He may have just for a split second there forgotten that he had been taking way better trades there. And he had way more gas because of it. So he overmade Corruptors. If he would have made one more Brute Lord, like just like one more Brute Lord in that final spot of the game, this would have been a win. Insane.